Yeah, I have a big long video that I'm working on exclusively on the break, and I just do it in my spare time, and I hope to get it out by the end of the year. This ain't it, although this subject I'm about to deal with comes up in that video too. It's a very important topic, and it needs to be addressed, and the reason I'm bringing it up in this video is because this layout of these 9 balls shows what people are trying to do when they're pattern racking. Pattern racking is more common than you probably think it is, especially in the higher ranks of pool, up in the semi-pros and pros. And they'll do it for as long as they can get away with it, it's easily justified. These guys are playing for their next meal, and that's the difference between pro pool and, every other sport. Yeah, they're not, they win or they starve, or they go home and just get a real job. And the thought of getting a real job is like death to them. These guys are real pool players. They're not playing around. So it's almost like, if their opponent is too dumb to catch them and say something, then they deserve to be pattern racked. That's kind of how they look at it. People look at things and justify it in any way that they have to. So it's kind of seen as not harmless, but just something that they deserve. If they're going to let it happen to themselves, they kind of deserve it, and they haven't paid their dues long enough to know what the hell's going on. So I don't make the following video to show you how to cheat. I make it to keep yourself from being cheated. In the break video, I'll get real scientific and analytical about where the balls are racked and the pathways of those balls in different breaks, from a soft and medium to a hard break. And we'll just go over and dissect it really, really in depth at that point. For right now, I can tell you the agenda is to get the 1 and the 3 up table and the 2 and the 4 down table. And the result is you're moving the cue ball all over the table every time you have to shoot, and you're going through traffic or around traffic, and it makes it really, really difficult just to get started on a rack. And it goes further, where the wing ball is most often the 5 ball. So if you're breaking from this side of the table and the 5 ball is going down every time with the 5 out of the equation, now when you get to the 4, you're going over that pattern again, where you have to move the cue ball all the way back up table for the 6 and all the way back down table for the 7. So it's really good to practice these, because they're going to come up, and there's going to be a lot of times when you just don't want to say anything, you just want to deal with it. And if this is as hard as it gets, then when you're getting gravy racks and easy racks where you're only moving the ball like a foot or 2 on each shot, those are becoming strong racks where you're running 3 packs, 4 packs, 5 packs, and 6 packs. And the game suddenly just seems easy because you're used to practicing it the hard way. The only thing harder is when you have combinations to shoot, or you're forced to kick at a ball or jump a ball, or balls are clustered up and you have to break them out. So yeah, I really recommend practicing these patterns here, where the 1 and the 3, the oddball the odd number balls are up table, and the 2 and the 4, the even number balls, are down table. And if you want, you can put the 5 ball in the hole and just skip the 5 ball and put the 6 up table and the 7 down table, and then just throw the 8 and the 9 anywhere on the table. So let's go over this rack. The Q to the 1 to the 2, 2 to the 3, 3 to the 4, 4 to the 5, 5 to the 6, 6 to the 7, and 7 to the 8. And it's common knowledge that the more you move the cue ball, the more difficult this game becomes, because a whole lot more can go wrong and you start banging into balls, and it just becomes a headache and work to run a rack. So let's go ahead and start. The volume is turned down for once, so let's shoot. And you can see right from the start, I have to find a way to get back on this 2 ball, and I am going through traffic here where I come down and hit this short rail to bounce off the long rail just slightly. So a lot could have went wrong right here from the start. Just keep your head. It's like, okay, I'm going to beat you at your own game here. And that's perfect on the 2. We can get right back on the 3. And you want to get straight in on the 3 because you want to stay on that side near this rail to shoot that 4. You don't want to be shooting the 4 ball through traffic and looking for doorways like the one between the 9 and the 8. It'll just make the game too hard. So the closer you can get to this rail, maybe an inch out off this rail, you can just hit a stop shot on the 3 and you'll be straight in for the 4 to be right on the 5. So, I mean, I'm not quite on the rail, but I can kill this ball, and here's where you need to learn about killing balls. The natural angle, if we just hit this with center ball, is going to come out a little bit, and there's a good chance you're going to get stuck behind this 5 when you're shooting at the 4. Let's back up so we can see the 4 here. Yeah, it's really easy to get stuck behind this 5 story. You can't see the 4. Now you're pretty screwed. You're going to have to wind up kicking at this 4 and hoping for a decent safety. We can kill this angle with left hand bottom English. So instead of, it just hitting this 3 and coming out sharply for this rail and bouncing out like that, we can draw it back a little bit with a little bit of bottom to come back a little bit, so it's just barely skimming this rail. And we can kill if you put right hand English on here, it's going to send it straight into this rail and bounce out. So if we put left hand English, it'll do the opposite of that, and it'll kill this angle. So once again, you're barely skimming around, just like that. Put that in your arsenal. It comes up all the time. Killing balls is just as important as throwing balls, and increasing the angle. Decreasing the angle is just as important as learning how to increase the angle. So we want to bounce out a little bit on this 5 ball, because I don't want to just hit a straight in shot with top and roll down to this side of the table. I'd much rather get to this side of the table to get back on this 7 ball. So we want to bounce out, but I wound up bouncing out a little bit too hard, and I just overstroked the 4 ball. I just put too much of a stroke on it. So this guy's cracking a joke over here. So yeah, I didn't see. Now I wound up with a really difficult shot on the 5, because not only do I have to make the 5, but I have to get this cue ball down here. So this is shot with top left to spin off this angle with right hand English and throw the cue ball down. You have to be careful. This is a scratch shot. So top left, and you don't want to increase the angle down to this rail and bounce off. You'd be better off hitting this rail first and using this short rail as an insurance rail. But you don't want to put too much top on it to where it bounces off and you're left with a bank on the 6. You don't want to come out on top of the 6, so you have to be careful here. Practice this shot. This might be another key shot of the 10 key shots in 9-ball. Yeah, it just might be. The last 3 videos I've had 3 of the 10 key shots in 9-ball. Top left. When we need an angle, we don't want to get straight in on this 6. And we have enough to go to the long route and come back out on this side of the 9 and the 8 on the right hand side from where we're looking from, to come back on the 7-ball. And you can see I'm still moving the cue ball up and down table in every dang shot. A little bit of right hand English top right on that. And that's a good angle to get back on this 6. And here's that shot that comes up often where people tend to underhit it because they're afraid to overhit it and go long on this. It's better to go long on this shot than come up short. You don't want to come up on the 50-yard line, because then when you skim the 8 in, you're going back up table on, to get on the 9, and it's just too much work. And once again, you're moving the cue ball all over the place, and as I've said over and over, the more you move that cue ball, the more that can go wrong. You have to keep it simple. So you're spinning this ball with a lot of left, come off this route and this route, and don't underhit this ball. Don't be afraid of it. If you have to go into the 9, that'd be great, because it's going to stop it right where the 9 is. But it's also best not to hit other balls on the table that you're not trying to hit. So make up your mind whether you want to hit this 9 or not, because you can wind up just skimming at the top and the cue ball coming over here, the 9 barely moving, and now it's in your way of the 8. So spin that. You can see the cue ball spin on it. Maybe I'll put that in slow motion. Left hand top on this. And we got perfect. And here you can go 2 rails and back out for a shot in the side for this 9-ball. That gets a little dangerous too, because if you go long, now either way, whether you're cutting this in the side or cutting this in this corner, is just going to be a little bit of a difficult cut shot. And you want to keep it as simple as you can. And so I decide not to do that and just ignore both of these both of these side pockets and just go down. I have the natural angle to just go down off at the short rail, the bottom rail, and just bounce out in line for a straight-in shot in this corner for this 9-ball. And I decide that there's been enough stress in this game, so I'm just going to do what's guaranteed. And that way you don't have to do a lot with the cue ball. There it is. We should cut it here and save that for later, but I'm not going to, because I have, if you want to know more about pattern racking, I talk about it a little bit more in this coming mini vlog after I shoot this 9-ball. And then I'm going to run this rack without commentary and just let you guys enjoy it with some music. So if you want to stay tuned, go ahead, and if you had enough, thank you for tuning in. Thank you either way. I really do appreciate you guys. So let's shoot this 9-ball and shut up. Peace, guys. So if it's rack your own, which is usually the case in bigger tournaments, then the player can rack the balls in a way that increases their chances of breaking and running out. And if it's loser racks, then the loser will rack the balls in a way that decreases the chances of the breaking player running out. And they have it down to science, and there's been new rules created to keep these things from happening. But the players, because they're playing for their next meal, are 20 steps ahead of the pool authorities who make these rules. See, the issue with this is if it's a loser break tournament, so your opponent who's beating you is the one racking for you, you can't really prove that he's pattern racking you until he shows pattern of doing the same thing on every rack. And another huge and very discouraging issue with this is, you can talk to your opponent and say, look man, quit pattern racking me, but you can find yourself down 3 or 4 games before you on the first rack, you can't say anything because he can just say, oh, it's just a coincidence that I put the balls in. But after 3 or 4 games, it's like, okay, dude, I know what you're up to, and quit doing it. But if he comes back and says you're crazy, I'm just putting the balls, wherever. You can go to the tournament director, but if it's a rinky-dink tournament here, often they have no clue. The guy running the tournament has no clue what the hell pattern racking is and doesn't know what you're talking about. And now you've created all this tension in the room, and it can get ugly. Sometimes you're better off not just saying anything, but there you are, down 4-0. And you're going to have to take whatever he gives you. So, there's no rule in any of these tournaments saying that, any ball has to be anywhere except the 9 has to be in the middle and the front, the 1 has to be up front. And a lot of tournaments say the 2 has to be in the far back, which kind of does make it hard to pattern around somebody. But that's not all there is to it. Sometimes you can't say anything, sometimes you shouldn't protest, sometimes you shouldn't create a scene, and just learn how to deal with these things as a part of the game. So I practice them for these reasons, and it makes me a better player because it's pretty much the hardest it's going to get to run out. You know what I'm saying? If you can run out consistently on it while being pattern racked, the only thing harder is when balls are tied up, and that you can't purposely create a rack that ties balls up. So if you're grinding away in your local pool rooms and little local tournaments and stuff, you don't want to get the reputation as a troublemaker, even though you're not the one that's making the trouble. That's what you'll seem like, and that's what they'll make you out to be. And it won't be long before they start barring you from places. And if you continue, you're going to start running out of places to go. You're going to be missing out on a lot of action. So it's a screwed up situation. It's part of what we have to deal with, Where you break from and how hard or soft you break will determine how he pattern racks you. I don't want to get really, really detailed into all that because it'll eliminate the need for my award-winning video production on the break, the secrets of the break. I'll also say that I'll be unpredictable and I'll actually make it look like I'm breaking from one part of the table, and at the last second I'll switch over to another part, and the minute he thinks I'm breaking soft is the minute I'll break hard, and the minute he thinks I'm breaking hard, I'll break soft, and this keeps him confused and on the edge of giving up because this little scheme is backfiring. It's the way to handle it, and again, I'll get more into that at a later date.